Good evening, friends, and welcome to this edition of Thursday Night Mystery Wine Blind Tasting. Happy to have you all with us for this unique wine. It's got a particular smell that I'm trying to figure out already, and I'm not sure about yet. But we will work it together and figure it out. If you're joining, please chime in and let us know who's here. There's a meatiness to this. Interesting. Very cool. Hello, Sanders. How are you guys? Great to have you with us. Jenny and Kristen are here. There's such a meatiness to this. Okay. Are you guys picking up on that meatiness? I literally opened this 30 seconds before clicking go live, and so it's already that expressive, which is very interesting. Rob and Kathy, hello, good evening. Fair disclosure, there's some turkey burgers in the background and some crispy kale. So as I'm doing this here at home, I think there are other aromas in the air that might be influencing my perception of this wine unduly. We'll see as we keep going and go further with this. But Rob and Kathy Sanders are joining us. I know the Burst has picked up a bottle of wine earlier, so we'll be chiming in a moment. All right. Well, we are in for a treat this evening, I think, with this one. And I stepped away from the restaurant this evening as it was pretty busy, though, thanks to this beautiful day. I hope you all got a chance to get outside and enjoy 73 degrees in November. That's pretty remarkable. So James with us. Hi to you. Kathleen and Matt are with us. The Kestenbaums are here. And yeah, legs are pretty fast. This is a lighter bodied wine then, huh? So you're jumping ahead or getting me on task. Thank you very much. Jan Nelson's with us this evening. Hello to you. It's great to see you the other night celebrating your birthday. Happy birthday once again. So yes, what color are we looking at? What is the profile of the wine? Does it look like it's kind of reddish? Does it look more purplish? Does it look a little bit more brownish? And I'm going to snag a little bit of paper. And it's definitely more on the red side for me, the rubyish side. Wow. I think that ruby element is there. It has a pretty fair viscosity that forms, and then, as was pointed out by Johnny, the legs form, the tears form rather, and then keep a pretty consistent but thin leg, right? This is a wine that that by appearance on the glass, and then also by appearance in the glass itself, by the wine itself, is more medium weight, maybe medium minus. It's not a super intense deep color. It has some richness to it. I can see through most of the glass once it's poured or tilted to the side. John and Ann, what are you seeing as you're looking at it? Welcome aboard for this evening. I'm glad you're here. And yep, Bobby and Jan have just joined us. Leon and Kim. Yeah, Jan, thank you for that too. It's got the clear rim element too, so it might have a little bit higher alcohol. Looking at it this way, right, with the formation of the legs and the tears here, they are faster, a little bit thinner, so not quite as viscous, so potentially not as high in alcohol or as warm a potential climate. It has that clearish rim, which would indicate maybe some alcohol, so maybe we're in the comfortable high 13s. We'll see as we get further into it. As you smell it, as I was saying, or just as I touched on, it had an aroma that just jumped right out of the glass. This smells meaty to me. It smells like ground meat, like ground beef. It has this not quite cooked meat profile, but a raw meat. And it's really prominent. So if we're looking for a few things on the nose, what are we looking for? Fruit, earth, and wood. That earthen element is where you kind of would tuck away some of this meatiness. Jan, you picking up some oak notes, some spice? What kind of spice are you smelling? Hmm. Okay, so wow, it's going more tertiary than primary. So it doesn't sound right to me anywhere. It never did. Tertiary means secondary notes, and the primary notes. I was talking with some guests last night, and I said something to the effect of this wine. We got a chance to open a 1990 Domaine Rollet Pinot Noir from the Jura, and it was 31 years old. And so I was saying that the primary notes were gone. And the primary notes, when you hear that in wine talk, it's generally about fruit notes, about something that is primary first. When you think about pressing a grape, you're talking about fruit, and the fruit profile would be something that's primary. The secondary characteristics or the tertiary characteristics are what come as a result of perhaps a little bit of age, a nuance beyond the grape itself or within the grape, and that's more of a translation of the place. It could be some of the fermentation qualities of the wine, but this has that earthen profile and secondary characteristics where it's going from that meatiness to sort of a soy note. Kimberly's noting that it's got sort of a Luxardo cherry, the maraschino cherry element on the very back of the palate. I haven't jumped into the taste yet, but I will get to that. And based on the color, I wouldn't be surprised by some element of cherry, but this is a very confectioned cherry, which is neat. And Adrian in San Diego visiting with her family has chimed in. Hello, Adrian. I don't think you have the wine, but you can play along certainly with descriptions. And Johnny, you're kind of jumping to where I'm headed here. So if we're profiling this just based on the nose and the visual, would you put this in the old world or the new world? And don't worry if we don't get it right, but we've described it as being sort of reddish in color, rubyish in color. It has a little bit of a lighter profile. It has more earthen profile in the aroma that's coming out of the wine. A little bit of a fruit note. Does that take you new world or old world? And for Johnny, he was saying Italian, so that's old world. And that's something you kind of know. So as you're building a profile already, or trying to at least head in a direction and begin to prove or disprove your initial conclusions, that's helpful, right? So when you smell something like this, my immediate thought would be, wow, this is old world versus new world. And if it was from the new world, this would be a unique wine that could bring you this profile, or maybe it had some age on it. And from the visual of the wine, it doesn't indicate kind of a browning color sensation. The wine from last night, being 31 years old, was pretty browned. It had a core kind of a ruby character, but then the outside was a definite tawnied, bronzed kind of effect. And this doesn't show that. This is relatively youthful, I would imagine. So, oh, it's kind of getting herbaceous now too. There's a little rosemary and woody elements. Bobby, you're picking up a little bit of alcohol in the nose. So it might have a little bit of alcohol for sure, and that watery rim would indicate that too. So we're already thinking a medium weight wine based on the legs and the tiers, right? We're thinking about potentially high alcohol. We thought about 13, maybe right into 14 zone, but high 13s. We're thinking old world. And so already we have dwindled the world down to a relatively smaller place or more manageable place just based on the nose and the appearance. Chris, you're picking up. Welcome to you, sir. You're picking up. And to Courtney, if she's with you too. Sage. Yeah, you put it together that ground meat element and sage, and you're talking about breakfast sausage here. And there's a hint of that, and it's kind of moving more into the cooked sausage, like the browned bits of sausage or the browned bits of the ground meat. It's powerful. And so when you're thinking about something that's meaty, and we're in the old world, Italy can provide some of that. Certainly Syrah can provide some of that. So let's continue to kind of work the process. But all of that, we've already given ourselves a pretty good parameter. And the objective is, of course, not to stay within that parameter and to run away from other ideas or thoughts that come to you that might be outside of it. But it's to use that as a way in which to kind of funnel your thoughts, at least to filter your thoughts. How about that? Through them and see what stays and sticks. So there's a funk to it now. The wine is opening up for me, and as I said, I opened it up at 6:59 and 30 seconds. So it will need and probably benefit from a little bit of time. There's a little vegetal note now too coming through in the way of kind of carrots, carrot stems, carrot, the core of a carrot, raw carrot, grated carrot. All right, let's try it. Wow. It's more tannic than I expected based on the appearance. Where would you place this in terms of, is the acidity high, medium, low? Is the alcohol high, medium, low? Do you find that this wine has a kind of lighter body, a medium body, a more robust body? And where do you place those tannins? I think the tannins are surprisingly more medium plus to me. Maybe just medium, but they're there. Ooh. I kind of had to sniff the air because this just smells more and more like the griddle. You know, we have our griddle at work and in the restaurant, and all day and all night, the umami burger is getting smashed onto that griddle, and you've got the smell consistently of the ground meat and the Maillard reaction, the formation of the caramelization of those proteins happening, and it's like it's been distilled and placed in this glass somehow. So Bobby's picking up a little bit of dirt. Kristen is throwing down a little bit more acidic elements, medium plus, yeah. And tannin, it is more tannic than I expected too, I agree. And that tannin and the acid together, we've talked about this before, they play off each other sometimes and make the other kind of seem like more. And I think the acidity here is a little higher than the tannin, but it's accentuating the tannin in a way that makes the tannin feel more pronounced. Medium alcohol, light to medium tannin for Bobby. Yep, it's got a little bit more herbal, medium tannin. So we're talking about more acidity, so medium plus acidity, maybe medium tannin. This wine has a medium body. It's not super robust. It's not huge, right? It's not whole milk. It sits a little bit lighter on the palate, and then the tannin lifts off and the acid lifts off too. See, that's where Kathleen's kind of coming in too, where is it higher tannin and lower acid, or lower tannin and higher acid? Ooh, back and forth. A coffee note. Interesting, yeah. This wine has an interesting range of profile, right? So when we're trying to isolate a place based on what's in the glass due to sort of a ripeness or presentation of the fruit or the aromas that are in there and then the flavors that are in there, and we have something like rosemary, and we have something like maraschino cherry, that's a huge range of like ripe, almost candied fruit and herbal quality. And that's something that, how do you reconcile that? Maybe it's a blend. Maybe it's two varietals or three varietals or multiple varietals that are presenting different elements in the wine, or responsible for different elements. And maybe it's the same varietal that's picked in a variety of different places, and therefore is essentially a blend of different places. And so one spot's cooler, one spot's riper, or warmer, that results in riper and a more underripe, and then you get the variety in the glass. It could be also a winemaking style, for example, when you get some of the herbal notes like that we're picking up here. You could have some whole cluster or stem inclusion in the production, which would be taking the grape cluster and the whole cluster, as opposed to just the grapes being removed from it. The whole cluster is used, or sometimes the grapes are removed and they put some of the clusters back in for a flavor element, for a tannic element, for just a stylistic choice. Wow. Now it's got a little more of that oak profile. It's coming out that Jan was noting earlier. It's like beef tartare on toast points for me. And there's still that dirtiness. It's kind of an old basement smell too. Wow, there's a lot going on here, and it's little to do with fruit for me on the nose. Anybody have any thoughts about what fruit you're picking up on the palate? Bobby notes that this doesn't really linger. It's got a shorter finish. And I think that's a great example here. This is a very good example of a shorter finish, but the tannin lingers. And so the perception might be that the wine continues on, but the finish itself is not a flavor-based finish where you have something that lingers in the way of fruit or that even that earthen profile. It's fairly truncated, but the tannin maintains, and the acid does a little bit too. I'm still salivating, but it's more about that tannin experience. So maybe we're back to sort of a medium acidity and a medium plus tannin based on the finish of the wine. As I said, it's difficult to parse out that tannin versus acid in this wine. Wow. Jan, you're sitting with a Cab Sauv blend, like a Bordeaux blend. I mean, you can certainly pick up a wood element, right? You can certainly pick up, as Chris pointed out, some kind of coffee notes sometimes. And Bobby, yes, I agree with your translation there. Basement smell equals funk. Yeah, there is that funk. Chris, you're saying Cab Mourvedre, so something kind of southern French, perhaps. If we're in France, and maybe we're not. I mean, maybe we're somewhere else that's doing something unique. We could have sort of a Spanish varietal mix here. Kimberly, I like it. No, it doesn't sound silly. I like the more specific notes, especially when the olfactory sense and the flavor perception kind of prompts a thought, like a non-sweetened strawberry rhubarb. We were tasting a wine today that was a pet nat made from Aglianico, which was fascinating. It was tannic, and it had that rhubarb it had this astringency, this tartness, both the astringency from tannin and this tartness that you can get kind of from rhubarb, right? And so one of the descriptors we were using was rhubarb in that discussion. So I get that, and I get to hear rhubarb twice in one day with respect to wine. So there's the throughput there. So something tannic that has that perhaps a little bit of stem inclusion, but certainly something that has that drying sensation often, or it can suggest sort of that rhubarb element. And then there's a reddish fruit character, but it's not like it's opulent fruit. It's more like the facsimile of strawberry than the actual sweetness of the strawberry flavor. Yeah, the tannin is building for me. Wow. At 20 minutes in, the point when the wines usually change, Sangiovese or Tempranillo. So a bigger Sangiovese, something that's a little more powerful. Tempranillo, Petit Verdot blend. Tempranillo, yes. I mean, we had some Tempranillo recently, right? And Grenache. It's possible, for sure. It's difficult to kind of nail what this might be based on the fruit because there's not a lot, and so it's about potentially place or winemaking style. And the tannin at a higher level. I like the Syrah Mourvedre kind of idea. Carignan, Bobby, that's not bad too. Like, so I'm kind of. Let me ask this question: based on what you're smelling and tasting, do you get a sense that this is Italian, as Johnny was pointing out first? Or, thank you for the prompt, do you move yourself to the Rhone blend? And Johnny just answered my question. You're in my head, sir. Um, do you move to a Rhone blend that has sort of a Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, or Syrah, Mourvedre, Carignan? So something that's not necessarily straight up Italian. I get it. I don't, it doesn't feel Italian to me. And it doesn't feel Spanish. That's not scientific, right? That's not helpful for me to say that. But it does feel old world, as per Chris's note and several others. We kind of already ruled out sort of the new world. So if this was the new world, I would be kind of flabbergasted. And if it was the old world, it would make sense to me. But now it's a question of where do we go? And Kimberly's noting that the wine keeps changing, and it's not, yeah, it's not staying put for us just to kind of nail it. And it's also not revealing like a telltale sign, at least not to me, that would suggest, all right, yeah, we got to go this direction. So we had a Cabernet blend put out there. We had a Rhone type blend put out there. We have, yeah, we're kind of in that French world at the moment, and so that's pretty helpful. Walking away more from the Italian, I think like if we had Italian, wouldn't we have more ripeness? Wouldn't we have some of like, remember we tasted Tempranillo from Ribeirão del Duero recently, and it had that figgy note. It had like really ripe, darker fruit, and that's not to say everything in Spain is made that way, but it just has, as a counterpoint to France, where you have this potential profile, maybe it just has a bit more of that French element, like an angularity to it, as opposed to a volume that comes by way of being riper. Something like Corbière, or back to the southern part of France. Thinking through, could it be like Malbec from the Loire Valley? Could we be getting something pretty tannic but yet cool? You know, something that has all this earthen profile. In the Loire Valley, they call that CO, or COT. Tannat, yeah, Bobby. I mean, Tannat, I think it would have more dark fruit, but that's not true. We've tried Tannat with some more of the reddish fruit character and a little bit more volume, but it's building in Tannat, right? So could be more. Maybe we're drinking something more Mandarin like. And now Tannat is an approved varietal in Bordeaux too, so wouldn't that be kind of neat? The tannins are really building. Ooh, yeah. So Languedoc, Côte de Rhône, Malbec from Loire Valley, Mandarin or Tannat from the southwestern part of France. What we can say it's not, right? It's not Pinot Noir, it's not Beaujolais, it's not Gamay. I don't think this is Cabernet Franc. It has a bit more tannic structure and an earthen profile that I just think we would get a little bit more fruit and maybe some leather elements and some currant kind of stuff if we were in Bordeaux. But maybe we're just kind of Bordeaux adjacent, sort of in the southwestern part of France, or heading down toward the southern part of France in the Languedoc. And I think that's a very good call. Côte de Rhône, it could be a sort of not an imbalanced Côte de Rhône, but not a typical Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre with more Grenache and then smaller Syrah and smaller Mourvedre. I would think it'd be more on the Syrah, Mourvedre, dollop of Grenache, Carignan kind of thing. Sanso. Yes, Chris, it's not Chardonnay. Yes, we're ruling that out for sure too. And as some of you have said in the past, it's also not IPA. It's not a beer. So we're ruling that out as well. If it's Tannat blend. So, you know, in Mataran, sometimes you can taste a wine, for example, that's Tannat and Cabernet. And so it's a Cabernet blend with Tannat. And that softens the Tannat a little bit. And there's potential there because there's definitely a meatiness. Going to the unfair, I'm not playing the wine game, I'm playing the bottle game. This is not a wine bottle that you would typically find a Côte d'Rône in. It would come more typically in the sloped bottle or the Burgundy bottle. So I think we're getting to a point where the Rhône could move more toward the southern part of France, so a Languedoc wine, maybe it's Mataran, Tannat, something like that. I'm comfortable with that. I think I like that idea. All kinds of that earthiness. What do you think, folks? You comfortable putting a flag somewhere in the ground? Are we all on the French side of the world? Wow, now it's just soy and Cab Sauv blend. So Cab Sauv maybe Tannat or Cab Sauv Bordeaux blend from Jan. Bobby's kind of in that Tannat blend. Harrison, Anne and John McCarty are in Languedoc, so they're almost, generally speaking, going to be defaulting into a blend there with Syrah, Mourvedre, maybe Cabernet. I mean, there's a little bit more flexibility there. Languedoc's a larger region in France, in the southern part of France, that you can find typically Rhône varietals, but you can also find a little bit of Cabernet planted there, Merlot planted there. Some older vine material. And you have the variation in sub-regions of the Languedoc where you have more hillsides. And so older vines on hillsides producing something with tannin and structure and power. You have some that are more kind of lower elevation rather than some sloped vineyards that give you cheap and easy kind of cheerful reds. So you have a range there, but you have a lot more flexibility, a lot more grapes to work with, a little bit more like Chateauneuf de Pape, where you're going to have umpteen varietals that could go into the blend, and thus you could have a variation. You could see more Carignan, you could see more Cinsault, you could see more Mourvedre in higher percentages, you can see Cabernet added in with that too, and so it's a place where from just a general appellation area, it's kind of nice. Like we could just say, I think it resembles a potential Languedoc wine, and you've covered your bases pretty well. Cab Mourvedre for Chris Shirley and Courtney. France, we're all pretty comfortable in France. Okay, well, good. I'm gonna, because I have to play on a flag. My first inclination was Syrah. The tannin here's a bit more than that, and the Syrah was based on the meatiness. So I'm going to go back to kind of I like the Languedoc. I like the Southern France Mourvedre Syrah blend. Might have a little cab to it, something like that, that gives this earthiness and the power, but it doesn't have as much of the structure profile, the volume. So I'm going to say Mourvedre-ish Syrah blend, Southern France, and I think it's pretty youthful. Right? It's not very old, so I don't think. I'll give it 2018, 3 years old. 2017, 2018, 2019, I guess is a possibility, but I think 2018. Okay, Kristen's there too. Cool, good. Let's see. Well, shoot. How about that? This is Tempranillo Cabernet Sauvignon from Ribera del Duero. Huh. Tony kind of stumped us by doing that again. So, Valtravesio, Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh, well, come on. This is really not fair. This is Tinto Fino or Tempranillo and 99% of it, and then 1% Cabernet Sauvignon. That's pretty interesting. 12 months in 85% French oak and 15% American oak. So that's the oaking elements that we get there. Very clay-based soils and 14.5% alcohol. Wow. That's an interesting wine. It's listing Cabernet Sauvignon on the front too. It's kind of funny to do that with 1%. So, but we picked up some of those characteristics. It's very meaty. Wow. And 2018, the vintage. He repeated it. Yeah, you know, it's fair play. Like, we shouldn't play the game that way, thinking like he'll never do it again. But he did it pretty much back to back. So, but this is totally different than that, which is great. It's neat to try a wine that is a completely different style from a different place, which makes total sense. I mean, all of us here, we go to different places in Virginia, drink the same vintage, the same grape, and they're not the same. They shouldn't be. And this is a great example of that. But I still kind of stand behind what we said, even though we're completely wrong. It didn't read very Spanish. It read much more like where we were. And we were not too far, but we were circling, per your note there, Chris. Yeah, I think that's, be interesting to see how this wine opens. If you have some, I think it might be fun to see it because it's continued to develop for a half an hour. It could use a little more time, but I think, you know, giving it another day, if you have any left over, leave it till tomorrow. Sanders were telling me that too, right? That one of the wines, and forgive me, Johnny, I can't remember which one it was, but you guys kept it open and didn't join us for the chat, but opened it and like let it sit, and it was just awesome. And I think that might be the case with this one. It could definitely benefit from a little bit of time. Yeah, it's a fun pick for sure, Jan. I'm glad you enjoy it. And it definitely was pretty smooth at 14.5% alcohol. I did not pick up on that much alcohol. Bobby picked up some alcohol early on. And it's there, and we're seeing it in terms of the rim variation. But wow. Yeah, it's time for a bacon cheeseburger that you leave pretty rare. You could enjoy the heck out of that with this. Chili, for sure. Yeah, cool. Kristen and Johnny are going to take it to decanter and let it sit. So decant it tonight, put it back in the bottle, close it, and then tomorrow open it up back into that decanter if you want. And I think it'll be a whole different wine. I'm going to leave this glass open for the rest of the night and finish those turkey burgers for the kids. So I'll see you next week. I won't see you next week because next week is Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you who I don't get a chance to see prior to that point. But we'll catch up in 2 weeks as we rejoin the chat and figure out what we've got in store. Tony's been kind of feverishly working on a few things he said that are going to be fun. And I saw the format of a bottle that he put together that I think it's in a 1 liter bottle. So that's pretty cool. It's bigger. It's got more to it. So plan on having a friend over for that one, or just not going into work on Friday the next time that one happens. I'm not sure which day that is, but yep. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And I'll see you after, if I don't see you at the restaurant before. Cheers.